What up, all my fight fans? So we are fresh off this fight over Gervonte Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia, and I have a few questions. Another question that I have is, how is Gervonte Tank Davis going to do with the rest of the division? Because Ryan Garcia, as good of a fighter as he is, I wouldn't classify him as being the best 135er, especially being the fact that he really wasn't any more of a 135er anymore. He was more of a 140. But I still wouldn't rank him up there. He still got some very, very tough opponents up there, like a Lomachenko, like a Devin Haney, and now we got the rising up and comer from the 130-pound division, Shakur Stevenson. So all these fighters, especially Devin Haney, who is very, very talented. I mean, Devin Haney reminds me of more of a young Floyd Mayweather, but he doesn't necessarily have that crazy power, the crazy knockout like Floyd Mayweather did at 135. We remember that 135, 130, Floyd Mayweather was just a monster, just a beast. He was pretty much knocking out everybody. I feel like that was his natural weight class in the beginning of Floyd Mayweather's career. Like, that was something he should have probably stayed at, because he could have been very, very dominant in that weight class. His power didn't really much carry in the upper weight class, but eventually we already know what happened there. But still, Devin Haney definitely reminds me of that. He has a lot of great skill, a lot of great boxing skill, a lot of great technical skill. Shakur Stevenson, I haven't seen a whole lot of him at this division yet. It's still very early for him at this division, so I'm sure little by little we'll get to see a little bit more as time goes on. But it makes you wonder, how is Tank Davis going to do with these guys? Because Tank Davis, a very powerful puncher, a very strong guy for being at that weight class, 135. It's pretty hard to be this much of a knockout artist like Tank Davis. I think he's like, what, 28-0 with 26 knockouts, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on that. But still, very impressive. But his fighting style isn't necessarily much of a brawler, and it's not necessarily much of a boxer. It's almost like a powerful, I can't even say this, because basically he's literally not much where he outputs. Like, he has like a 30% output. He's not throwing a bunch of punches. He's not putting together a lot of combinations. He is a very, very patient power puncher, I guess you could say. That's one way you could put it. A very patient power puncher, where he's able to just hit you with 1 or 2 shots at most, maybe 3 if he's feeling a little bit more, with his hands. But with Devin Haney, he seems like he would be a lot more in the realm of where he's going to put more combinations and such. And of course, we already know Lomachenko, the beautiful footwork that he has. Now, Lomachenko, I do still feel like he has a lot to give, but nowhere near as he was once was. Back in the earlier days, probably like maybe a couple years ago, especially prior to this whole Ukraine war that transpired, and especially before COVID, he was just a beast. He was just dominated. I mean, the guy looked like he was just floating in the ring. He didn't even look like he was walking. He looked like he was floating. He had amazing footwork. Still kind of does, but he is getting a little older. But he just had beautiful, beautiful footwork. You could not see him. You could not touch him. He was in and out so fast. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. In his prime, I really don't feel like anybody in the 135-pound history could have probably touched Lomachenko with his feet, with his footwork alone. So, but we got a big fight coming up in May 20th, Devin Haney versus Lomachenko for all the straps. I'm definitely looking forward to that fight. But as far as Gervonte Tank Davis goes, we got to wonder how he's going to do against the rest of the division. Because like I said, Ryan Garcia definitely wasn't a natural 135-pounder. Ryan Garcia definitely wasn't probably the number 1 guy in the division. So now you got to see where Gervonte goes. Gervonte has to fight forward now. Like, he could maybe take another, decent fight, a low-level fight where it's not something where it's too dangerous and such. Sure, you don't always have to be in this role of killers where you're just going after killer after killer after killer. You could take your time. You could possibly fight somebody on the lower rankings a little bit, but you're going to have to fight upward. You cannot do what he was doing prior to his career, where he was fighting levels from 10 to 5. No, now he has to really fight 5 to 1. He has to fight those rankings. He can't fight the upper rankings anymore. Or, excuse me, he can't fight the lower rankings anymore. He cannot go over there and expect, like everyone to respect him and appreciate him if he's going to fight decent name opponents, but past their prime opponents, or opponents that are possibly not quite ready for him just yet. You got some really high level opponents in the lightweight division, and even at 140 if he wants to float at 140 again. If he wants to fight at 140, he has to be able to fight someone extremely well, extremely good. You can't just take on somebody that's like a ranking and that's a former name. You know, unless it's a really good former name, really, really good. You know, no disrespect to his other opponents, but some of those guys were a little bit past their prime, a little bit past, you know, their expiration date, and some of them maybe not quite ready for that big showcase just yet. But now you got some stars up there. Like I said, you got Teofimo Lopez, you got a potential rematch with Ryan Garcia. You even got Josh Taylor. I know he was even talking about 147. You know, that's jumping the gun a little bit, and it's gonna say a lot. It's gonna say a lot. I personally don't feel like Gervonte should do that until he fights Ryan Garcia at 140. Only because when he does, or if he does, fight somebody at 147, people are gonna be asking a lot, like, "Hey, you fought this guy at 147, but yet you made Ryan Garcia go down to 136. What's up with that? Like, why?" Why? You know, unless he's be honest, he's like, oh yeah, well, you know what? Because I felt like I could beat him at 136. I felt like it would be a little bit more of a tougher challenge at 140. So that says a lot. But if he does just choose to go at 147, I personally do not feel like that would be a good choice. You know, with those killers up there, with Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, you know, even I think Danny Garcia moved up. But yeah, even those guys, yeah, I think these guys would be just a little bit too big, too strong. And I'm not sure if his power could carry up there. It's a lot different in sparring. It's a lot different in training. You know, yeah, sure, some of the guys you're fighting, but they're not these guys. You know, they're not these guys. So I would highly recommend not to do that just yet. Not just yet. But hey, you know, he knows himself better than we do. So that's something remains to be seen. So that's my question, guys. How is Gervonte Davis going to do with the rest of the division? How is Gervonte Davis going to do at 140 and a possible 147? Let me know in the comments, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.